Today I have rumour updates, and we all love those, don't we? But first, to recap. On December the 4th, I published a video about the new Canon EOS R high megapixel version of the Canon 5D SR. 2 days earlier, I did a comparison video between the Canon 5D Mark IV and the Canon EOS R. The EOS R, in my opinion, is just simply a minor update, a refresh if you'd like to call it, of the 5D Mark IV, with very little in terms of extra functionality. But the EOS R is really the base of which Canon is going to build its future on. This rumour announcement states that Canon is working on the EOS R Mark II. They're in the later stages of development. Further specifications will be coming out shortly, and it will be unveiled at Photokina in 2020. I believe that it's going to be this Mark II that is essentially going to be the mirrorless equivalent of the 5D Mark V, which we're expected to have announced and released sometime in the second half of 2020. Before I get into the reasoning behind why I think the EOS R Mark II is going to be the mirrorless equivalent of the Canon 5D Mark V, let's go back and take a look at the 5D and the EOS R and see how similar they are, so then we can predict what the 5D is going to look like, or the Mark II. In terms of video recording capabilities, both can do high detail 1080p, although they're limited to 60 frames a second. So if you're shooting in 30 frames, that gives you a slow motion factor of 2. They both shoot 4K. The 5D Mark IV, of course, uses the motion JPEG, whereas the EOS R uses a much more modern codec and is a little smaller. But neither one is really high detail. Slow motion. Both offer 120 frames per second in 720p. 5D Mark IV was criticized for this back in 2016, and the EOS R was laughed at for doing it in 2018. We don't have slow motion in 4K at all, but there are some other benefits. Both cameras offer C-Log, yet you do have to pay an extra $100 to Canon, pay to ship it off. There's no option of going to the camera store and saying, hey, give me that C-Log version of the 5D Mark IV. The Canon EOS R comes with C-Log, and arguably it provides better quality and better dynamic range. But it doesn't have dual SD card slots, whereas the 5D does. But for the ordinary filmmaker, this really doesn't have any benefit to us in the 5D Mark IV because you could only record to one card at a time. So essentially, you didn't have the option of 2 cards. This is a capability map of the Canon EOS R Mark I. What is Canon likely going to tweak in the Mark II? Well, here's my prediction. I do believe that they're going to improve the quality of the 4K. The detail's going to be better. I strongly believe that they're going to finally give us 120 frames per second in 1080p, and I hope, I pray, and I beg that they do keep continuous autofocus going. They don't do what they did on the 90D. I also believe there's a strong chance, no, this is Canon and Casey's cripple hammer is probably waiting in the development room. I think there's a 50-50 chance that this camera will have Ibis. I published a video last week talking about how Canon is going to put Ibis in every one of their cameras from 2020 and beyond. Sounds like a bit of fan fiction. I really hope it's true, but I'm skeptical, as I stated in that video. But again, it's something that we could potentially see. Other features. The development announcement for the 1DX Mark III was an incredible announcement, especially for video. It announced 4K 60 10-bit 422 internal recording and C-Log. Now, if we look at the Canon 5D Mark IV and compare it to the 1DX Mark II, the video specs were very similar. Although we didn't get 4K 60, we got 4K 30, but pretty much everything else was the same. Oh, and yeah, you did get the 120 frames per second in 1080p. So if we project and we take a look at what's in that 1DX Mark III, then I think there's a high likelihood that we will get good 4K 30. Will we get 10-bit? Again, I think it's a 50-50 chance we might get 10-bit internal recording. Will we get RAW? I don't know. I think that's, if this is the old Canon, we definitely won't get RAW, but we'll get C-Log. And I still think that'll be a much greater improvement over the EOS R Mark I. Also in that development announcement for the 1DX Mark III was the artificial intelligence of the autofocus. I believe the term that Canon used was deep learning, and that this is like nothing else that we've seen. If this is true, then we can expect a significant increase, a significant improvement in the autofocus capabilities of this camera. Now, let's just stop there. So if we get improved detail in 4K, we get 120 frames per second in 1080p, with or without autofocus, and we get improved autofocus all around, and we get Ibis, I think that would be a dramatic improvement over the EOS R. But this is where it gets really tough in projecting with Canon, because over the last 5 years, wherever Canon had an opportunity to deliver something really awesome, the cripple hammer came and just bashed it all to pieces. In essence, the EOS R should have come with 120 frames per second in 1080p. It should have come with 4K 60. It should have come with sharp 4K 30. Many would argue it should have come with Ibis. It should have come with dual SD cards. A single card and a camera at that price range, does it really, really hurt to put it in there? That's what makes this difficult. It's very hard to predict with Canon. I think it's a lot easier to predict the business cycle than it is to predict what Canon's going to do in their new cameras. But again, according to the rumor, we're going to get some information very soon. I don't know, is that going to be in a week or two? Is it going to be in a few days? Is it going to be January? Here we are on December the 9th. Christmas is coming up. Chances are we're not going to get any more rumors between the 20th and the 27th. I think things are really going to start to heat up in January. What do you guys think? Do you think that the Canon EOS R Mark II is essentially the mirrorless equivalent of what the Canon 5D Mark V will be? Do you think a lot of that technology that's going to go into the 1DX Mark III, as per the development announcement, is going to filter down into that EOS R Mark II? If you were an EOS R consumer and they really, really improved upon the capabilities of the Mark II, would you upgrade to the Mark II? Would it make you feel frustrated? I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this. Personally, I'm a little bit excited. I'm filming on the Canon 70D and I think it still does a really good job. But it's 6 or 7 years old, and taking a look back at these capabilities here, I'm ready for 4K. I really, really want to do 4K. It's not that I want to output my videos in 4K, but I want to have that ability to punch in, create the, not illusion, but to be able to pan within that 4K space, to be able to simulate multiple different camera angles. And of course, to downsample to create a much sharper 1080p image. Ibis would be terrific. I'm tired of tensing my body up and using my body as a rigid pole to stabilize the camera. Ibis would be wonderful to have. But autofocus. I think this is where this camera is really going to shine. Canon has been very good at autofocus, and it's one of the few features that has kept me with Canon to this date. I'm not with Canon because I think they're the best camera company in the world. The reason I started with Canon is my brother had a Canon and he was pretty much a photographer in my view. So he said, yeah, they're good. So I bought myself a Canon 40D. Then when my son was born, I needed a camera that could shoot video, and I tried one of those handheld things. It was $300 and it was terrible. So I went to a proper camera store and I asked, what camera would you recommend for video? They mentioned the 70D and I said, does it produce good video? They said yes. I bought it, and what I didn't realize then, but what I know now, is that was one of the best cameras I could have bought at that time. Now I have 3 lenses on that camera. So it's a lot more expensive for me to upgrade to a Sony. Sony's done terrific work, but now I'd have to buy all new lenses, and Sony's lenses are not cheap either. I could go to the GH5 or probably wait a little bit till the GH6 goes out, but I'd have to buy new lenses there too. So I'm not with Canon because I think Canon makes the best cameras. I'm with Canon like a lot of you guys because moving away from the brand is quite expensive. So I'm going to wait to see what happens by about May, June of 2020. And if Canon does release a EOS R Mark II that meets the capabilities I'm looking for and does a really good job, I'm probably going to go out and buy it. Yes, the lenses are a little expensive, but the 24-105, which would be my run and gun lens, is quite affordable. Getting the 50mm or some of the other lenses, they're very expensive, but I could purchase the adapter and take my 51.2 EF lens and put it on the EOS R until I've got a little bit money saved up to upgrade. Or maybe the 5D Mark V, I don't know. But Canon seems like they're moving towards the RF platform on the EOS R. All the new lenses coming out are going to be on that platform, so I don't see the point of sticking around on the old technology. But that's my view. Tell me what you think, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please click like and subscribe. Your likes and subscriptions really help keep this channel going, and I appreciate your comments, positive or negative. I've worked very hard in the last couple of weeks to improve the quality of my audio and my video. If you'd like to receive notifications of when I release a new video, click the alert icon up top and you'll get a notification. See you soon.